All right. Welcome to the August 6th edition of the Silva and MMA show. Right now, we are going to preview UFC 265 and recap UFC Vegas 33 Strickland versus Hall. I believe that these two events may be comparable in quality when it's all said and done. All right, we'll start with the preview of UFC 265. The main event features Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane fighting for the interim heavyweight title, and I believe that Cyril Gane will avoid the big bombs from Derek Lewis and get a unanimous decision. Derek Lewis wants that knockout, but I don't think he's going to get it. We've already seen Cyril Gane face somebody just as dangerous in Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and he did not take any unnecessary risks and got the W. And I believe this will not be any different, really. I think Derek Lewis's best path to victory is Cyril Gane taking him down and him getting on top. He's going to be a significantly heavier man on fight night, so I think Derek Lewis could get it by ground and pound, but I just don't see Cyril Gane falling in any of those traps. And Cyril Gane will move on to face Francis Ngannou, and that's a very closely contested bout. So I believe that this will be a very awesome fight to watch. I believe Derek Lewis will make it close, but at the end of the day, it's probably going to be a little boring because Cyril Gane will not take the unnecessary risks as we've seen before, and he'll just tear up Derek Lewis's leg over the course of 25 minutes. And we'll move on to the co-main event. Right now, we're going to be talking about Jose Aldo and Pedro Munoz. Aldo is a legend. He's in my top 10 of all time. And Pedro Munoz is just about the same age, but he does not have the status of Aldo, so he's probably a little hungrier. So I'll be siding with Jose Aldo here because Pedro Munoz is statistically the most hittable fighter in the UFC right now. Pedro, Mun- Pedro Munoz has close fights on a consistent basis. I think Aldo's just a step above in the striking, and he will probably go leg kick for with Pedro. Pedro has been leg kicking since before it was cool, and Aldo, on the other hand, he just has more experience at the high level, and I think he's gonna outpoint Pedro Munoz here. This is probably gonna be the fight of the night. It's gonna be close, and it's gonna be really fun to watch. I think Pedro Munoz could get guillotine if Aldo decides to go for a takedown again, but it's highly unlikely. Both guys are black belts. And we'll move on to the welterweight contender bout between Vicente Luque and Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa is looking to take this to the ground, and Vicente Luque has not fought anybody as good as Chiesa on the ground until now. And I think Chiesa will show that in this fight. I think this will be a split decision. Luque will do a ton of damage on the feet. It's not even comparable the power these two men have on the feet. So I think Luque will have the advantage whenever it's on the feet. But you bring this to the ground, and we're going to see Chiesa manhandle Luque most likely. I think Chiesa probably won't be able to submit Luque. Luque is a black belt of his own, and he's also a submission threat. So if Chiesa blindly goes for a takedown or he gets rocked and panic wrestles, don't count out Luque here. He could get a Darce just like he got Tyron Woodley with. Woodley had never gotten submitted before that. So I think Chiesa should be able to ground this fight and at least bank 2 rounds with control time. And moving on, we're talking about Tisha Torres against Angela Hill. This is a rematch. Tisha Torres won the first one by unanimous decision. She basically got wrestled there, and Angela Hill had no answer for that. And Angela actually got cut after that. She came back. She showed some solid improvements, but once again, she continuously is in split decision fights, and I think she won most of those. So Angela Hill, she could be on a winning streak if it wasn't for those judges. So I'm gonna be siding with Tisha Torres here. And anyway, I think she can use her wrestling, and on the feet, this is gonna be a close fight too. But Angela Hill will be a little more aggressive, so it's all gonna come. It's all gonna end up in the judges' hands. And let's not forget this is in Texas, where the judges have proven to be untrustworthy. So I'm not gonna pick this with great confidence, but I will pick Tisha Torres just because she can ground the fight. So I'll side with that side just cause, but not with high confidence. We'll move on to the main card opener between Song Yadong and Casey Kenny. This is really exciting. These are two guys who were just outside the rankings. They just lost to ranked guys, and a win here should get one of these guys a ranked opponent. And I'll go with Casey Kenny here, just because the guy's a tremendous grappler. I think he's one of the best scramblers in the UFC at the moment. Song Yadong, his forte has always been his striking. Of course, working at Alpha Male, he's gonna be tangling with some great grapplers. But at the end of the day, Song Yadong will have more power, and that could get him the win here. But Casey Kenny is a durable guy. If you saw the Nathaniel Wood fight, that was a close fight. So I'm going to be siding with Casey Kenny here. I think he's going to have more volume, and he's going to have better cardio. So I think that right there will get him a win here. It's going to be a fun scrap there as a main card opener. We'll talk about the prelim headliner now between Raphael Fizzyev and Bobby Green. Oh my goodness, this is everything you want in a high level lightweight fight. If this was another division, this would be a top 10 fight. That's how good this division is. But I think this is very much a showcase for Raphael Fizzyev. He's a 3-1 favorite for a reason. The guy has next level striking. I think you could say he's one of the best strikers in all of the UFC. This guy's next level. And Bobby Green, while he may be known for, getting a lot of wins, some of those wins were against older guys and older guys that love to grapple. This is not one of those fights. This is a guy in Raphael Fizzyev who's younger, who's super quick, and he's going to be beating Bobby Green to the punch. Bobby Green, his best hope here is to grapple him, but on the feet, I think Raphael Fizzyev will light him up. Bobby Green did get knocked out by Dustin Poirier several years ago, and I think Raphael Fizzyev will find the chin as well in the second round, and he will 100% get a top 15 opponent after this. He deserves it. Maybe Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's itching for a fight. If the Alman Sarukian fight doesn't shake out, why not do it? Let's move on here. We're going to be talking about Draco Rodriguez against Vince Morales. This is a really fun fight. This is higher on the card that I would expect. Two unestablished names, but it's going to be fun. We know Draco Rodriguez. He's probably going to be looking to take this to the ground. He's a well-rounded guy, but a lot of his wins have been by submission. That's how he got his Contender Series contract. He got a triangle. And Vince Morales has legitimate knockout power. And Draco Rodriguez's durability has let him down. A lot of people thought he was, 100% going to beat Ayman Zahabi. A lot of people don't think highly of Ayman. But Ayman knocked out Draco, and he knocked him out very early. So I think Vince could do the same thing here again. And Draco Rodriguez, it will be a submission threat on the ground, but I don't know if his durability will be reliable here. So I'll side with Vince Morales by second round TKO here. And we'll move on to talk about Ed Herman and Alonzo Minifield. It's crazy to think Alonzo Minifield is fighting a guy from the 2006 season of The Ultimate Fighter. That was a really good season. Ed Herman, they don't call him the short fuse for nothing. He's a hothead, and that's kind of how he fights. And in this last fight, he pulled a classic veteran move. He got kicked in the liver, and what did he say? He said it was an illegal shot below the belt. And yeah, that was a veteran move on his part, but that's an illegitimate win. If you ask me, he was done. And in the third round, the reason Mike Rodriguez got submitted was he was just looking for the finish, because he had already, in his mind, he had already won. So that was just a poor performance for Mike Rodriguez. But, Ed Herman did what he needed to do. And now he's on a 3-fight win streak. But that 3-fight win streak is very unimpressive, if you ask me. Pat Cummins, come on. The guy's way over the hill now. And before that, it was Khadis Ibrahimov. If you remember that guy went on a 4-fight skid. He looked very unimpressive. And, these are not high-quality names that Ed Herman has been fighting. And I think Alonzo Minifield has more power than any of those guys, and he's going to shut the lights out from Ed Herman. But if this sees a third round, I think Ed Herman can submit. He's tough as nails, and he's a legitimate black belt, as he showed in his last fight. So I'll go with Alonzo Minifield by first round KO if he can stay disciplined. We'll move on to Karolina Kovalekic against Jessica Penney. Penney was a former title challenger, and so was Karolina. But Karolina definitely had the better showing against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and I believe she'll have the better showing on this night as well. The disparity in the striking ability is just so large that I think Karolina should 100% piece her up and kind of make it look easy. Jessica Penney is 38. She was coming off a long layoff, and personally, I thought she lost her last fight to Lapina Godinez. Whenever it was standing, Lapita was lighting her up, but we saw Penney continuously get her back, but she was unable to submit her. I think Carolina has way better fight IQ than Lapita. She's not going to get stuck in that position and allow for Penney to get control time. So all sided with Carolina to do a ton of damage, possibly get a third round TKO, but I'll go with the decision here. I think Carolina just was in a ton of bad matchups recently. It's tough for she to lose that many. And all those girls that she fought and lost to, they're miles ahead of Jessica Penney. So there should be no disrespect to Carolina when you're picking this fight. We'll move on to Manal Cap against Ode Osborne. This is going to be a fun one. Manal Cap, he's been struggling to let his hands go, and I think in this fight, he will let his hands go. This is 100% a step down in competition. Ode Osborne, his only win in the UFC was to Jerome Rivera. And if you know about Jerome Rivera's UFC run, not impressive. He never could get things quite together. And he absolutely got slept by Ode Osborne. But the guy carrying more power in this fight is Manal Cap. And Ryzen, he was the champion for a reason. He had the power to put everyone out. And Ode Osborne, he's got a slick ground game, but Manal Cap is no chump on the ground. Even though he's been submitted a couple times, he's training at AKA, and the great Habib Nurmagomedov stops by to help him out from time to time. So I think Manal Cap won't get stuck in those positions, and he should let his hands go this time. Because let's not forget, Lenny March is telling me that Manal Cap missed weight by 3 pounds. Honestly, that's really not going to affect this fight because maybe he had a bad weight cut. I think this is going to end early. I think Manal Cap has his back against the wall. He needs this win. I think he knocks out Ode Osborne in impressive fashion, and he gets a bonus. Well, he will be ineligible for a bonus, but had he made weight, he would have got a bonus for the knockout he's about to put on Ode Osborne. Let's move on to Miles Johns against Anderson Dos Santos. This fight was set to happen a couple weeks ago. Anderson Dos Santos had a pullout, but the pick does not change for me. I'm going with Miles Johns just because he's the better wrestler, and I don't see him getting caught in those guillotines from Anderson Dos Santos. Anderson Dos Santos had a tough start in the UFC, losses to Ewell and others, and I just think Miles Johns is a really good fighter. His gas tank is kind of suspect, but he was able to get a third round stoppage in his last fight against Kevin Natividad. Natividad is a slick BJJ guy, but at the end of the day, his durability does fail him. But that was a blatant glove grab from Miles Johns. So who knows what happened there on the Chris Taglioni side. Nonetheless, Anderson Dos Santos will make this fight close on the feet, but his best path to victory is a guillotine, and I don't think Miles Johns gets caught in it. He's never been submitted. He only has one loss to Mario Batista by flying knee. And that was a really good win for Mario Batista when it happened. But I just think that Miles Johns is a higher level fighter. That's why I'm siding with him to get the unanimous decision here. We'll move on to Victoria Leonardo against Melissa Sagado. Melissa Sagado is undefeated. She's 6-0, but there's two draws, so she did not look good in part of those fights. So nonetheless, I don't know if she's ready for the UFC quite yet. There's really not a ton of tape out there for me to say if she is or isn't, but she did submit Carol Hosa. That's an impressive win, but that was an underdeveloped Carol Hosa. So I don't know how well that name ages. And she's fighting Victoria Leonardo, who's pretty big for the division, I would say. And she's very tough. You can hit her with whatever. She's going to still come forward, and she can finish you right after that. as she showed on the Contender Series. So I think Melissa Gatto might have her trapped in a submission attempt, but I think Victoria Leonardo will be able to slip out and possibly get some of her own ground and pound going. And who knows if she can finish the fight, but I think Victoria Leonardo has better cardio and is probably going to be physically stronger. So I think that probably should be enough for her, as well as the superior striking on the feet. Victoria Leonardo has just had tough matchups against tough strikers. If you're gonna fight a karate champion in UFC debut, UFC's not doing you any favors. So I'll definitely go with Victoria Leonardo here, just because there's a big step down in competition against somebody who is undefeated. But I don't think she's the caliber of fighter that's gonna stay undefeated for long. We'll move on to the fight card opener between Johnny Munoz and the Afro Samurai Jamie Simmons. Jamie Simmons, my goodness, the UFC matchmakers probably are not a fan of him. Uh, they brought him in to lose to Giga Chikadze on like a week's notice, like a couple of days' notice, I believe it was, and he got his head taken out by a head kick. That was just an easy win for Giga. And now he's at the weight class where he belongs against Johnny Munoz. Johnny Munoz is not any easier than Giga Chikadze. He's a super talented grappler. He only has one loss to Nate Maness, and that fight was very competitive the whole time. So I think Nate Maness is miles ahead of Jamie Simmons. Jamie Simmons is a collegiate wrestler, and I think he will make this fight a little competitive early on. He's got that that typical wrestler kind of striking where he just wings bombs to close the distance. And I don't think that's really gonna work on Johnny. I think Johnny's just got a slicker ground game. And if Jamie Simmons gets tired in the second round and he shoots in for a takedown, I think Munoz should be able to wrap him up at whatever submission he chooses to submit him with. And they keep on putting this fight as a pay-per-view opener. Remember, this was going to be the opener for UFC 261, Usman versus Masvidal. They keep on making it an opener because they know Munoz is going to get a quick finish. Let's be honest. And Munoz is a super confident pick for me. In fact, I would say he's probably the most confident pick for me. Maybe besides Cyril Gahn. I just think he's that far ahead, and I think he'll get a really good finish here, and it'll be an excellent way to kick off the main card. Let's talk about Bellator from this past weekend. AJ McKee was able to submit the great Patricio Pitbull Freire in the first round. Who would have guessed that this fight would end so quickly? The Bellator GOAT just getting absolutely destroyed like that. That was something I was not expecting. I actually thought Pitbull would win by third round KO. I was completely wrong. Pitbull got hit with a tremendous head kick, and you could have ended the fight right then and there, but he had to jump in on that guillotine, similar to Jones and Machida. He looked awesome. He's a star. I think if he comes to the UFC one day, I think he can do wonderful things there, and I believe he would be a top 5 fighter in the UFC featherweight division, not so much the lightweight division, which he's probably going to be ending up in Bellator now. I think the next move for him is that rematch with Patricio at 155. Imagine he takes 2 belts and he becomes the face of Bellator now. That would be awesome. And I think he will successfully do that. So really good work there for AJ McKee. A lot of people were saying that Bellator card was going to be better than the UFC card. And I was like, hold your horses, buddy. These cards that people like to underestimate from the UFC, they tend to perform well. And a lot of people were trashing on this card. I was not really one of them. I was saying, let's just give this a chance. Let's see how things play out. And boy, oh boy, did they play out in epic fashion. Let's talk about the main event first. We're going to be talking about Uriah Hall and Sean Strickland. Strickland dominated. He had the best performance of his career. And Uriah Hall couldn't have looked worse. He looked like he kind of quit on himself. He looked very tired. And he was outclassed by Sean Strickland for 5 rounds. He nearly got finished, but I don't know why Strickland went for a takedown. That was a confusing moment there. But Sean Strickland is a high-level fighter. He just earned himself a fight with Luke Rockhold. on November 6th. So I think this was the right showcase that Strickland needed to move up to the next level. And now he's a top 10 fighter. He's ranked number 8 in the world. And yeah, I'm very impressed with Sean Strickland. Just a year a year ago or so, a lot of people didn't really know who he was. So ever since he came back from that motorcycle accident and moved up, he couldn't have looked better. And I think the Luke Rockhold fight is a good matchup for him. It's gonna be a close fight. I'm not picking Strickland right away, but we've seen Luke Rockhold's durability film on a couple occasions, so wouldn't count on a Strickland KO there. So this is going to be a fun fight. But Strickland, he looked amazing, and Hall did not. Hall's now 37. He's probably not going to get that title shot now. That's really tough for Hall. We would have thought he would have done better from that Ultimate Fighter time, with that spitting back kick and everything. But yeah, tough spot for Hall, but it's now a good spot for Sean Strickland. Moving on to the co-main event, Cheyenne Buys. She knocked Gloria DePaula's head clean off her shoulders, man. I don't know what Mark Smith wanted to see after that. Some brutal ground pound right after. And that knockout was exactly in a minute. That's very uncommon for women of their size, but Cheyenne Buys pulled it off. I really thought this was a good matchup for her after she fought a tough wrestler and Montserrat Ruiz prior to that, and Gloria DePaula was not going to ground that fight. And we actually saw that Cheyenne Buys was going to ground that fight. She did, and when they were getting up, she landed an amazing head kick. And yeah, she really didn't use her kicks as much before, but she moved to Extreme Couture, and they told her, hey, you got to start kicking again. You've been a lifelong kicker, really. She had a Taekwondo base, and she showed it. So really good to see her get a bonus as well. She definitely needed that money, and it's really nice to see stars like that in the sport. And Buys, she got a significant amount of followers. I believe it was like 80,000 followers after that. So it's nice to see her benefit from the co-main event slot. That, let's be honest, she did not deserve. Both her and Gloria DePaula were winless in the UFC, and the girl who beat Gloria was stuck on the prelims, Jin Frey. We'll talk about her later, and let's move on to Jared Gooden, the Night Train, against Nicholas the Green Mask Stolze. This was a spectacular knockout. Jared Gooden, it was looking like he was getting gas if this hit his second round, but that did not matter. Jared Gooden had the power to put away Stolze. Lenny was picking Jared Gooden with a decent amount of confidence, and when you watch this fight, you see why the power discrepancy was pretty huge, and Stolze's durability did not hold up. So really good win for the Night Train there. Good stuff from him. Let's move on to Melsik Baghdasaryan against Colin Eglin, two Contender Series alums, two guys with a lot of finishes on the record. But at the end of the day, Colin Eglin was not as good a striker, and he was not as aggressive as Melsik. Melsik looked phenomenal. That head kick was violent. My goodness, it really connected in the right spot, and it put away Colin. And Melsik is a killer. I wasn't too impressed with his Contender Series fight, but I was definitely impressed with this win here. He got a bonus for this one, and well deserved. There was a lot of contention for bonuses, but this was the right pick from the UFC. So Melsik's head kick was amazing, and it should give him a solid matchup after this. Yeah, we clearly saw that Colin Eglin, he's a little underdeveloped. He fought a lot of guys with really bad records before that Contender Series fight. Hence why he was like a really huge underdog in that fight. But yeah, he was unable to ground the fight. That's why Melsik was able to have so much success. And we'll move on to Jason Witt against Brian Barberena, the fight of the night. And how could this not be the fight of the night? The third round was possibly the round of the year. That was a phenomenal fight. I bet a ton on Brian Barberena because Jason Witt's chin is nothing to brag about, man. The guy's been knocked out 5 times. Brian Barberena, he's got legitimate power in his hands, but yeah, Jason Witt was able to use his wrestling early, tire out Barberena a bit, but Barberena was able to continuously hurt Jason Witt, but in the second round, Jason Witt actually got a knockdown, and that was a real jaw dropper for me. I've never thought highly of Jason Witt striking, but let's be honest here. Brian Barberena is not the best defensive fighter in the UFC, so that's why he was able to get hit with that bomb in the third round. That was a 10-8 for Brian Barberena. That was a draw in my book, and Brian Barberena was very aggressive, and he nearly stopped him. If he had a little more left in the gas tank, he would have. But those guys were so sluggish at the end of the fight. They just couldn't quite get that finish. Brian Barberena was so close to doing it, but yeah, that was a phenomenal fight. I can't speak higher of that fight. Those two men put their hearts out there, and it's absolutely crazy that Jason Witt was able to survive that amount of punishment after losing in 22 seconds to Samuelsberger just earlier this year. Really good showcase for those two guys. And win or lose, you can expect a war from Brian Barberena, if not a finish. So at least he keeps his reputation there. But yeah, tough loss for Brian. Yeah, just wasn't his night. And Jason Witt is better than I thought. So good fight for him, and maybe he gets that Max Payne Griffin call up that he was asking for. We'll move on to Chris Grootsmonker against Rafa Garcia. Grootsmonker looked really good. In the first round, he got dropped. Rafa Garcia nearly got the stoppage. And this is another pick where I lost a lot of money. Rafa Garcia was a guy I was super confident in, my most confident pick of the night. And he was a 3-1 favorite. He looked like a 3-1 favorite until he didn't. He really did not have the best of cardio coming into this. Grootsmonker was able to land a ton of body shots and punish him. And there was so many occasions where he could have finished the fight, but he just didn't put his foot on the gas enough. And Rafa Garcia, he fought through all of it. He really showed his heart out there. It's not to be questioned again. And his control time was not comparable to the damage that Grootsmonker was able to accrue in that third round. That's why the judges gave to him. But it was a close fight until it wasn't. Grootsmonker really pieced him up. He destroyed him. He looked very impressive. And Rafa Garcia has got to work on that cardio, because if he had more cardio, I think he definitely wins that fight. But Grootsmonker, he had a really amazing comeback there. This was a high action card. A lot of people were really doubting this card, but every single person on this card brought it. They all fought their hearts and souls out, except the ones that got, knocked out quickly. This was an awesome card. We'll move on to Danny Chavez against Kai Kamaka III. This was a draw. Tough night for Danny Chavez fans. He got poked in the eye in the second, and this was a rare occasion where a guy was out with a foul for a long time, and he actually made a solid comeback. But 10 minutes after, Kai Kamaka knees him below the belt, and a point has to be taken away by Herb Dean. And in that third round, Danny Chavez possibly did enough. I don't know. It was a really weird fight, and you could tell that Danny Chavez was not the same after the foul. So I'm 100% down for a rematch, assuming Kai Kamaka can keep control of his weapons. Yeah, this is gonna probably be fight of the night, but really unfortunate there, and I would want to see the rematch, because I don't think this one lived up to the potential, and a rematch would probably be a little different. Weird fight there. How I would like to see the rematch. Moving on to Jinh Yu Frey against Ashley Yoder. Ashley Yoder, she really needs to change her camp, man. She has not gotten better. She keeps on making the same mistakes. And Jinh Yu Frey, on the other hand, she looks better and better. She's a little older. She's making the right improvements, and her striking looked fierce. She was looking like she was gonna stop Ashley Yoder. Ashley Yoder, her heart is not to be questioned. In the Angela Hill fight, she nearly got stopped. She fought through that. In this fight, she was getting stung over and over. And in the second round, she had a moment where she was stinging Jinh Yu Frey, but at the end of the day, Jinh Yu Frey could have seen that punch coming eventually, and she was able to control most of the fight. And yeah, really good win for Jinh Yu Frey. I thought this was be on the ground more, but it wasn't. This was actually a really good fight, and good showcase for Jinh Yu Frey. And I think she deserves somewhat of a step up after this. We'll move on to Zaruk Adesha versus Ryan Benoit. I thought Ryan Benoit would get this. I thought that Zaruk Adeshev was on his way out. He's got one of the ugliest records on the UFC, but man, that record does not say enough about him. He's a tough guy. I thought the fight was over when he got dropped and Ryan Benoit started dropping those bombs, but you saw that leg kick. That leg kick mangled Ryan Benoit's leg, and it was looking tough for him out there. He could barely walk. And Zaruk Adeshev, on the other hand, was able to control that fight as soon as that leg on the Benoit side was compromised. These two men are warriors, man. They fought through it all. And Zaruk Adeshev, man, oh man, he's the real deal. I really think he is. I was, really doubting him after his durability failed him early in his UFC career against Tyson Nam, but now I think he's here to stay unless he fights like a really talented grappler. I think a really good striker would would have somewhat of a challenge with him. But yeah, he's getting better in the MMA game now. This was one of those. He's not even 10 fights deep in, so I think he's only going to get better after this. And this flyweight division was not looking this great like a year ago, but now you can 100% say it's one of the better divisions in UFC. I would say probably better than heavyweight division. That's where it sits right now. Moving on, we're talking about Phil Rowe versus Orion Cosi. Orion Cosi, just like his brother, he looks good early, but after that goes downhill. And Phil Rowe, I was very impressed with Phil Rowe's comeback in this fight. In the second round, he really started to use his length with those elbows and knees, and he was punishing Orion Cosi. He had him very busted up, and he got a clean walk-off finish, a walk-off TKO, and Orion Cosi got just mauled by him. He really took a lot of punishment, and it was a brutal finish to watch. And Phil Rowe, he's got a crazy reach. It's comparable to Alexander Volkov's, and it really started to use it here. And he keeps on talking about his ground game and how he can grapple with the best of them. But I would have liked to see a little more of that in the first round when he was stuck on his back. But nonetheless, he's probably a better grappler on top. So I'd like to see that next. Yeah, I think he should probably fight Takashi Sato next. That would be a really fun fight. Two guys that prefer to strike, but I think Takashi Sato is a guy with clear submission defense issues, and I believe that we would see Phil Rowe exploit that. So really good card, very high action card. Stop down in these UFC cards with these unestablished names because these guys have some to prove, and they proved it to anybody who didn't know what was up with them. So yeah, don't count out these cards anymore, and do not count out UFC 265 this weekend. This will be a really fun card, a ton of finishes. It's in front of a sold out Houston crowd, and Derek Lewis will feel the pressure. And I think that at the end of the day, that will detract from his performance. Cyril Gane will be your new interim heavyweight champion and go on to face Francis Ngannou. It was a pleasure talking to you guys. Fortunately, Lenny couldn't join us. He's got other responsibilities. But this is a fun little stream with you guys, and it was good talking to you. And make sure to enjoy the fights. Peace out.